Okay, welcome to the forum this evening for the Ironwood Area School Board candidates. This forum is sponsored by the local Gogebic Range unit of the League of Women Voters of the Copper Country. The League is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages citizens to play an informed and active role in government. Any person 16 years and older, regardless of gender, may become a League member. The League does not support nor oppose particular political parties or candidates. The League does take positions on issues after a lengthy member study and consensus process. The Gogebic Range unit was just organized this year and is mentored by the Copper Country League out of Houghton, Michigan. More information about the League of Women Voters or membership information is available at the League's info table. The League's statewide voter guides are also available at the League's info table. There will be no direct oral questioning of the candidates by the audience. So I've said that 3 times. Or back and forth discussion interplay between the candidates. I'm eyeing that right now. Okay. This event is not a debate, it's a forum. Its purpose is to allow each candidate to state their views on question topics so that the audience can learn about each candidate. The candidates are asked to respond only to the questions asked by the moderator. That's me. Candidates, you are free to address any appropriate issues during your opening and closing remarks. So you'll have 2 free-for-alls where you can do whatever you want. The League question associates, back here behind me, will combine audience questions that were submitted that focus on particular topics to allow for comprehensive discussion by the candidates as of the many issues facing the Ironwood Area School Board as time will allow. So you might not hear your exact question because someone else might have submitted one similar, and they will try to put them together into one question so that we can cover lots of topics. Candidates. The question answers will be limited to 1 minute per candidate per question. At the conclusion of which, our assistants at this table over here will hold up a red sign. Can we see the sign? And you'll also have an audible warning at 1 minute. At that time, we would ask that you stop speaking and that the next candidate will be asked the same question. Once all candidates have answered the same question, we'll then proceed to the next question. The same candidate will not be required to answer first. So we'll sort of rotate through you and each of you will get to go first at some point. This is a League-sponsored event, and as such, we will not allow any campaigning material in the building. We will also not allow any rude or loud comments in the form of clapping, booing, hissing, whistling, yelling, etc. from the audience, please. If this occurs, we'll have to stop the forum, we'll have to wait for everybody to settle down, and then we'll continue. No voice, image, or other duplication of this event may be used by any media outlet or candidate's representative or campaign and any campaigning advertising. We are recording right now. We will make this recording available for viewing on the League website and on the Facebook page. And in accordance with FCC rules, it will be shown unedited in its entirety. Okay. We have 4 of our 7 candidates, and as such, we have provided name cards for the candidates who are not able to make it, but I would like to introduce alphabetically, and please forgive me on last names. I'm trying hard. Brenda Agee. Doesn't look like was able to join. Clancy Byrne, Caroline Delich replied that she regrets that she will not be able to attend. Candidate Rosina Doss, Chandra Marino, Aaron Rutzela, and Ashley Weber Jarventhal. Okay, opening statement. So finally. Sorry. Aaron also replied, he's traveling and will not be able to attend this event. He has schedule conflict with pre-planned events in St. Louis. My apologies. All right, opening statement, so we can hear from the candidates. Candidates, please introduce yourselves, why you're seeking the position, personal background, why you should be a good or would be a good school board member. And we will start with candidate Burke.
I'm Clancy Byrne. I've been on the board for 4 years now. I live in Ironwood. I've got a wife and 4 boys. The reason I'm running for re-election was I've been on the board for 4 years, and when I started, I had a perception of what I thought a board was, and as I've gone through the 4 years, I've learned a lot more about it. I believe that I represent a group of people that are a growing group in the community that I'm willing to work with, but also I've got a lot of experience as far as HR and business management for the fiscal parts of the job that I think I bring that perspective of putting the understanding and separating, perceptions and the hard facts of the numbers. I'm running for re-election too, because of the fact that over the last 4 years, I have seen the school take a real 180 from the perspective it was under our previous administration and how much it's grown. And I think that everyone in this community should be really proud of where it's at right now, and that we should all be supportive of continuing that project. And I'd like to be a part of continuing these real great successes we've had with our special ed program, with our continuing education program, with our CTE, thanks.
Thank you, candidate Byrne. Candidate Doss.
Hi, my name is Rosina Doss. I've decided to run for Ironwood School Board because I feel like we need some fresh faces in the school board that are more representative of our community. I'm relatively new to the community. I'm here by choice. And when I went to enroll my child in school, a lot of people discouraged me from enrolling in Ironwood and came up with a lot of different reasons why Ironwood schools weren't that great or whatever. And I'm always approaching things from a community mindset. And I feel like there's no reason Ironwood schools can't be great. I want Ironwood schools to be the first choice for people in the area. And I feel like I have a lot of skills building community, building togetherness. I'm a good listener. I'd like to reach out to people that have their children that live in Ironwood and enroll in Bessemer and pay to go to Hurley, work with the homeschool community and see if we can't grow the enrollment and make Ironwood the first choice.
Thank you. Candidate Weber Jarventhal.
Hello, thank you all for coming. My name is Ashley. I have been a member of the Ironwood community since I was 6 years old. I would like to run for the school board as I want to become more acclimated with the education system. I have a 5-year-old son who is just on the cusp of entering into the school dynamics. He hopefully will be attending next year in Ironwood, and by taking the step to be on the board, I can be more active with the school. I have a bachelor's in public administration, political science, and was a paralegal for 5 years, which I believe helps me to be an excellent advocate and mediator for others and help meet a common goal for those who might have adversarial viewpoints, and meeting a common ground that helps everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Chandra. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I'm excited to be here. I moved to Ironwood in 2017. I was living in Wakefield the year prior to that. I was a truck driver for 10 years. And before that, I was a chronic homeless youth from the ages of 13 to 20. And I experienced a lot of different dynamics in public schools, boarding schools, military academies. And now that I have my own son and we're looking at public education, I want to be a part of the table that facilitates what our public schools facilitate. And I'm just, I have also heard a lot of complaints. Oh, okay.
Thank you. We'll move on now to the questions for our candidates. The first three questions that follow will have been written by the league and are viewable on Vote 411, which is the website. If candidates participated and answered the questions, the answers are there. But we'll give you an opportunity right now. First question, and we'll start with candidate Doss. What would you see as the primary work of the Board of Education?
I feel like the Board of Education is more of a big picture, broad strokes type of thing. I feel like it's a citizen governance board, not coming in and, micromanaging and like chasing around individual instructors or administrators to do certain things. I think the board needs to set the culture of school, set the tone, work in the community to do the marketing and PR and community building. I feel like there should be more outreach, and then also working with the administration to make sure the right people are, in the right seats, as they say. I also feel strongly about working with the unions. I am pro-union. I have a lot of background with teachers' unions through my family of educators, and I feel like the board has a lot of important work to do there.
Thank you. Candidate Weber Jarvin.
I believe that the role of the board is to be support for the teachers and for the students. Our job is to make sure that the funding and structural aspects of the school are there, and to listen to the ideas of the teachers and of the students and help them to make those ideas a reality. It's our goal as a unit to make sure that, as I said, the funding is there, the building is upkept, that the teachers are paid, and to, do more of the administrative back part in the aspect of supporting those educators and students.
Thank you. Candidate.
Yes, I believe that the board is more of the hand on the pulse. So once again, you've heard it, don't micromanage, but we problem solve. So it's a group of people that choose to get together and see what's going well, what's not going well, and come up with solutions. And also progressively just get better at, every angle. Our hope for the future of our children, I think, is all the same. We want the best for our kids. We want the best for our community. And I believe that the board is just problem solvers. We get together and we find solutions to various problems, but also push forward in really great successes.
Thank you. Candidate Burton.
So I agree with the governance. In management, there's an approach called plan to review, where there's planning, doing, and reviewing. Planning is obviously where you put out your plan and you figure out what you're doing. Doing is the actual actions. And then reviewing is looking and seeing what did we learn from the actions in the planning. I see that the board's job is to review it. We're learning about what the plan was that administration put in. We're learning about how it was implemented by our staff and our teachers, and then we're reviewing it to help make sure that's in the scope of what we're looking for, and it's done within the policies and procedures that we've laid forth as our board policy. It's not our job to be the doers. We're not going into the rooms. We're not chasing down every rumor our friend heard on Friday night at Fish Fry. We're trusting in the system. If a parent comes to me and says, hey, here's an issue, I say, what have you done to talk to the school? Have you called Melissa? Have you talked to Dan? Putting it back and trusting that system and reviewing that that system is in place with the support structures and the trust to do the work that we have hired them to do. And if there's a deviation, figuring out how do we support it? Thanks.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with candidate Weber Jardenpah. What are your priorities and what in your background will help you accomplish that?
To be honest with you all, I haven't set a list of priorities yet because I haven't been active in the community of the school. And I hope as a board member to come in and be a set of fresh eyes to maybe see some of the problems that are there or that have been brought up and see what are new ways to go about fixing those problems, especially if they're ones that have been ongoing for a long period of time.
Thank you. Candidate Moreno.
I am in the same boat. I am coming in with no real knowledge of extenuating circumstances. I don't have any agendas. I don't come from any group of people with certain views. My goal is to come in and see where I can be best of service. I'm a great leader. I'm really great at bringing people together and reaching across hard lines to get to a common goal and serve together.
Thank you. Candidate Burke.
So over the last 2 years, we've been undertaking a strategic planning process where we have met with stakeholders throughout the community, staff, parents, teachers, alumni, and gotten their feedback on what do you want to see the future of IASB. And we've put that together and we've had these sessions and now we're in the process of putting it in place. The priority is to follow that and what we set out as far as our guidelines. We have safety, we have equitable access for all of our students. We have support of what's working. These things need to continue. Now, there's also things like our Josephson's purchase and the expansion into early learning center and then hopefully a before and after care program. These are our priorities that we've laid out as we've met with the communities over the last 2 years. These are the items that are priorities to help continue it because right now there is a vision in the school from the administration that they have created that has a lot of buy-in with the staff that we got built due to the fact that we had the feedback from so many stakeholders. And making sure that we're continuing that charge after all this work is a huge endeavor that I think is a priority right now. We've got the right support structure. We just need to continue the path and not deviate from it.
Thank you. Candidate Doss.
I know that there's not a lot of small action items that you can get done. And, school board takes kind of a long time to shift focus on things, but I feel like my goals, like I mentioned, are working with the community to engage more enrollment, supporting the administration. I do have some specific things that I've heard a lot from parents that I want to find more answers to, like why the 5th and 6th graders don't have art class. I'm kind of a big advocate for the arts in my life in general. And I would like to see more arts in the school as a long-term goal. I'm not sure what I could specifically do to further that, but that is a priority of mine. Really honoring the building that we have. I think the building we have is phenomenal, the physical plant, and updating it in ways. And I think the administration is definitely on track with that, but seeing that is part of the future of the school and that will attract more students to it is updating it and adding the tech that the building needs. Those are priorities for me.
Thank you. Question number 3, we'll start with candidate Moreno. What should your school district do to prepare its students to be active citizens in a dynamically changing world?
I love that question. I have to say emotional intelligence, emotional intelligence, emotional intelligence. If we don't have language for what's going on within ourselves, if we don't have the language for self-awareness, It is very, very difficult to communicate with others, problem solve, and lead. It's very difficult to really find community. And with what's going on in the world today with very black and white, them and us, hard lines and politics finding their way into every aspect of life. I think giving kids language and emotional intelligence to their everyday life is critical.
Thank you. Kenneth Burn.
So ultimately, teaching kids to learn. There's a very fine line between I know and I want to know. And I think if you think about it, when you've been in situations where you've not gotten along with people, it's been because either you or the other person were firm on the I know and not open to the I want to know. Teaching kids to be open to learning the perspectives and the discussion. Right now, we've got some pretty powerful political forces that know and not necessarily want to know. And like you said, it's getting everywhere. Rosina made a point about 5th and 6th with art. It's not, I know they should have it. Why don't they have it? What is the learning? That's the whole point, is the school teaches the kids not necessarily to know everything when they walk out the door that they're ready for life, but how they can approach those things. We don't learn math, so at some point I'll know exactly what the Pythagorean theorem? Yeah. See, but I know the problem solving parts of algebra, so I can think around corners with things, and that's the purpose of that. It's not for me to learn math for the sake of math. It's to learn how I can use those tools.
Thank you. Senator Dawson.
I think a big part of what I think should be taught in school is sort of similar to what Clancy said. It's not so much the memorizing of the preamble to the Constitution that we all had when we were kids. It's critical thinking skills. I feel like the world has changed and we have very powerful computers in our pockets that have, you can have an app for the Constitution right on your phone. You don't have to memorize it, and what kids need is critical thinking skills and ways to look at the world and think for themselves and know that everything they read on the internet is not necessarily true, and know that rumors get out of control, and be able to stop and say, like, is that real? Does that seem real? Does that seem right? And I think that is a very powerful thing that an inspiring teacher can teach kids.
Thank you.
I have to say, completely agree with all of your answers. But also something that I think that needs to be stressed is to our students, there are many ways to be an active person in your community. You don't need to go to a 4-year college to be a wonderful human being and provide for yourself, your family. There are other avenues. There's trades, there's certificates, there's hands-on, there's journeyman. And that knowing that just because you don't fit this block of the 4-year plan, you're going to be doomed in life. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, those were the first 3 sort of questions that were prepared by the league. Now we're moving on to our audience questions. And the first question, I think we're back to candidate Byrne again. First question is, how do you feel a school board should handle controversial issues?
So the good news is for a school board is the research is done by our administration. When it comes to anything that's presented to the board has not figured this out. The board has not gone through and delved into it. We have trusted in our admin and that we have empowered to this to do the research, to work with our legal team, to find out what's in our policies, so that once it's prepared, it's been fleshed out to the best of their knowledge. Our job then is to make sure that we look for any missing cracks, any things that weren't quite fleshed out, and make sure that we are following as much pre-thought before we make a decision, and that we're looking into all the perspectives. Not necessarily what my friends are saying and think we should do, but what is it really is our responsibilities from a legal standpoint, but also to the students and the staff. I think the controversial part is when we do it in the boardroom as opposed to following the the procedure of allowing the work to be done by the admin, which we've empowered with the legal consultants. And then we've asked those questions, so we're fully informed before we get into the boardroom. Dang.
And it does.
I feel like one of the keys with working with controversial issues is making sure that everyone feels heard. And that is being able to be open with the community about when they can come in and talk on whatever the controversy is and make sure that their voices feel heard. As a school board, I know there's not a lot of, you're not a judge and jury, you're not like making a judgment on people's emotions and people's feelings. And with controversial issues, things can get emotional sometimes. But I think it's really important that everyone has a chance to communicate, through some way or another, what they come at an issue with. I also think that transparency about how controversial decisions are made is really important, and that information is available to the community, because we are elected officials. So we answer to the people that elected us. And I think there's always going to be work to be done in transparency.
And then
I apologize, but could you please repeat the question?
absolutely. How do you feel a school board should handle controversial issues?
I feel that the board should first tread lightly, look at all aspects of the issue, and then come to a communal consensus that best meets everyone to the best of their ability. At times, you're not going to make everyone happy, but making sure that you don't ever cause purposeful harm to anyone in the school system is a big part of being the board. You're elected to represent them. So listening to the students and listening to the teachers is how you handle those situations. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Green.
I think with the willingness to remain open-minded and teachable. I think for some of us, as we get older and we get preconceived notions or comfortable in our thought processes, sometimes it's hard to see a side that might be uncomfortable to see. It might be difficult growing up with a culture that leans one way, to step outside of that and have the courage to ask questions. And I think, like the other candidate said, just getting the whole picture. If we're leaving somebody out of the table, out of the circle, we are not serving to the best of our ability. And I believe that happens a lot, and maybe not on purpose, but it does happen a lot. And we can fix that if we remain teachable and open-minded.
Thank you. Next question. I believe we're directing this one to candidate Doss. What should the school board's role be in the function of the school library? It's a long one. I'm going to read it one more time. What should the school board's role be in the function of the school library?
I believe the school board's role would be to ensure that the administration has the people in place to run the library. Otherwise, I feel like the school board would be fairly hands-off in the library, as long as the librarian was hired. I'm drawing kind of a blank here, to be honest. Pass.
I believe that the role of the school board is to ensure that the library has the books that the state requires for education. Obviously, there's a certain list of reading material that the state believes that students should be able to read and ensure that that's there. And as candidate Dawes said, ensure there's a librarian and that there's actually books in the library.
Thank you. Candidate Marino.
I'm not quite sure, to be completely honest. I don't know that the school board, like other candidates have said, have a huge role, just supporting the administration part of the library needs. And I know that there has been controversy across the country concerning libraries and books. And I think it would be the school board's responsibility to problem solve when those controversies hit our table.
Thank you. Candidate Byrne.
Books are good. I'm pro book, I'm pro library. So from a school board's perspective, our job is to make sure that funds are allocated for the libraries and that this area exists. That's kind of what I think the end of it is. Now let's talk about the controversy. There's a lot of talk about what books are in there. I will be clear. I think every book is worth reading if a kid wants to read it. I think we're in a weird spot where we're concerned about what they're reading instead of being blown away that they're reading. I think that books being in there are ideas. And if we're afraid of ideas, we're not paying attention to how we got where we're at. Dangerous ideas made America. Dangerous ideas made people. And I am for any kid that wants to read a book and walk away with something they learned. We should have no limiting their ability to get ideas from books. So that's my belief, is that we should make sure they're funded and not believe that we need to control their thoughts.
Thank you. I think candidate Weber Dragonpaw, this one's for you. We start with you now. How should the Ironwood area schools respond if COVID ramps up?
If COVID ramps up, I believe that we should do our due diligence of social distancing, maybe going virtual again, or at least social distancing in the classroom. And hygiene is a very big thing when it comes to the transmission of COVID. Ensuring that kids know how to wash their hands properly, offer them the proper PPE, offering them hand sanitizer, times to go wash their hands just because if they don't want to wear the masks, that is a whole nother issue in itself. I work in long-term care. I take care of individuals. Excuse me. Who would become sick from this? So I feel that doing your due diligence to protect others is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Marino.
Coming from a family of medical professionals, and growing up in a very biomedical approach to care, I would have to say that we trust professionals and do our best to keep each other safe. But more importantly, that is going to be something that the CDC and professionals handle. My opinion would be that we would support the families as much as we can. It is absolutely devastating for families to have to scramble and figure out childcare and figure out home learning and figure out how to do their job and keep their family fed and keep their family safe. And so whatever policies are going to happen. However, we can support families better.
Thank you. Candidate Byrne.
So I think I agree with the point of right now, COVID is not what COVID was 2 years ago. It's an ever evolving situation. So let's say COVID ramped up right now. I would have no idea what to do because it's different than it was last time it ramped up. So I would trust in the systems of what are the recommendations. Now, when we talk about maskings and things of that sort, our function should be, how do we minimize the impact to our kids in our schools? What do we do to keep the lowest possibility and chance of kids getting sick and hurt, but also closing down the schools and keeping kids out of schools? That's where experts who have looked at it can tell us what are mitigation strategies. How do we figure out how to bring it down? That's where we look at these things and we think about it from the perspective of not what's an inconvenience and I don't want to do, what can we do to control it? It's like having a fire alarm in the building. We don't want a fire, but we have it there in case it happens. We're minimizing our risk of things and putting the education there. We don't do fire drills in the winter because we really like making kids go outside. We're trying to teach them how to prepare and minimize risk. Thanks.
Thank you. Senator Dawson.
I feel like we're at a point where this question is kind of hard to answer because if COVID ramps up again, we're not going to be in the position we were 2 years ago and everybody all of a sudden was remote and nobody knew what the heck to do. And, you know, everything was in chaos. I feel like there's going to be more options now if there is a large spike. And we also have kind of divided our community and our children into vaccinated, unvaccinated, and do those groups need to do something different? It's just a kind of a whole different game now. I personally would put more concern on the faculty and staff and put more of my support towards the teachers than we did in the past. I feel like that is something that our community could have done better with the previous COVID spikes, and just cutting the teachers some more slack, being more supportive of them, making sure they weren't putting themselves at risk.
Thank you. Next question, Canada Marine. Do you think we should protect kids from hard historical or societal truths or help them understand them? So I'll read it again. Do you think we should protect kids from hard historical or societal truths or help them understand them?
As a parent, I want to protect my child from everything that would take his innocence away. So I would definitely want to protect them, but that's not going to prepare my child for his future, and that's not going to prepare him for real life. And it's not going to show him the mistakes of our past, so that we can do better in the future. I think there is a difference between protecting and lying. I felt lied to growing up, knowing the things that I know now and having access to the library books that I do now. I wish that I had known sooner the things that I know today about our history, about the world.
Thank you.
So not talking about something doesn't make it not happen, right? I think we can all agree 100% with that fact. You talked about things that you learn now. Yeah. Black Wall Street is an amazing thing. And I have been participative as a kid, and I didn't learn about that until HBO had it on a show about Watchmen. There are moments in our past that, while painful, teach us how to be better people, how to try harder. Every time we've had a really great moment in history, it's because we remembered about something awful that happened before and we're moved to change. Does that mean we have to learn unfortunate things? Yeah. I had to teach my kid about racism not too long ago. He didn't know what that was, but to help him understand the world, I had to break that. Could he have existed without of it? Yeah. But there's a lot of kids that can't because of the fact that they are of a different color. And that's not fair to my child to go out into this world and not know what it is, because he won't know how to be cognizant of that. He won't know how to interact with it. He won't be able to deal with it correctly. And while that hurts to have to teach these unfortunate things, this is how we teach better people.
Thank you. Senator Dawson.
Short answer, no. I would not protect children from learning accurate history, even if it is difficult. long answer is it needs to be age appropriate. And the people that know what's age appropriate and what's not are teachers. And they go to college and they learn how to be teachers and they learn childhood development and they learn what emotional level children are at and what they can handle. Obviously, we're not going to take kindergartners and explain the Holocaust from a very like personal, child level thing that would be probably traumatizing. But when they're old enough, we can find age appropriate ways to discuss really dark things that have happened and help them approach and problem solve their world.
Thank you. Candidate Member Travis Paul.
I believe that we should teach all aspects of history, because if you don't learn it, you can't grow as an individual, as Ms. Dawes says as well. There's ways to have an intellectual conversation based how you're going to talk about these topics on their age, and have open that dialogue to them so that they can learn about it and grow as an individual. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, and I think we're back around to Ken again. Not financial, not infrastructure, purely educational. What do you consider the weaknesses of the school district, and what have or will you do to improve those weaknesses?
So there is a huge learning loss that has been experienced by all of our kids since 2020. If anyone doesn't know that, that's a fact. The whole experience of COVID, and adults didn't help it, was really hard on our kids and how far their development is. So we have a lot to pick up there. And how do we figure that out? How do we catch them up to these points? Because we have kids that moved along in the process that didn't have the building blocks, and they're not where they should be. That's our biggest focus right now, is how do we catch them up to these points? How do we do that? I don't know. I'm not a teacher. I don't know how to fix that. How do we put trust into the system of our teachers and give them the supports and the resources to get these kids caught up to their points? That's our biggest focus of the non-financial, non-infrastructure, is how do we help make up for almost 3 years of alternate education that we were figuring out on the fly and these kids had to live through.
Thank you. Candidate Doss.
I feel like I'd mentioned before, arts is one of our weaker points, and I think it makes us less competitive, especially with some of the newer families to the area, some of the remote workers and people that have chosen to move here for the outdoors and things like that. They're not putting their kids in school locally because there's not arts, drama, things like that. All I would be able to do for that is advocate and be the bug in people's ear, constantly be bringing it up and just annoying people until it happened. I think more social interaction time is actually something that our district could improve on. From a parent standpoint, I know a longer lunch is really asked for quite a bit, especially for the younger children. They don't have enough time for lunch because they are using some of that time for social interaction. And for younger children, just social.
Candidate Weber Durgafel.
In the brief time that I've been running for this, I think that something our district needs to do, and I don't know how you do this because this has kind of become socially acceptable, is to input politics into every aspect of life. It's a lot of us versus them, vaccinated, unvaccinated. And I think it's a way of taking it back into a neutral spot so that it's not based off of these preconceived beliefs, and rather on how to learn and grow on and form an opinion on their own. Thank you.
Thank you. Hang on.
Can you repeat the question for me, please?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Not financial, not infrastructure, purely educational. What do you consider the weaknesses of the school district, And what have or will you do to improve those weaknesses?
So this is purely anecdotal, because I don't have any experience with the administration. I do have experience with word of mouth and parents coming to me and youth coming to me. There are demographics that are being underserved. These might be kids in the early grasps of addiction. They might be kids that are couch surfing every day because they aren't safe at home. There are kids that are hungry and the only safe time they have is in those walls and in those halls. The only meal they get is the free lunch that they get. There are a lot of youth that are suicidal and mentally ill, and the wait list for the psychologist at the hospital is 12 months. So resources for the demographics of the struggling.
Thank you. I think we're back to candidate Doss. If a conflict of interest should arise between your board position and your work or personal life, how will you handle it?
I think the key to conflict of interest is to be objective and to know when to step aside. And I have a lot of experience in worker cooperatives, and that's 20 years of decision-making on consensus decision-making. And if you're not familiar with that, it's a process that it's a drawn-out meeting process that not everyone has to agree, but you all have to move forward together. And I am very good at standing aside. I'm very good at removing myself from a decision as long as the decision furthers the mission that we've all agreed to. So if there's a conflict of interest, I think, again, being transparent about what that conflict is, why it's a conflict to myself, and what my actions are going to be, would be my due diligence.
Thank you. Candidate Weber Jarrett.
Depending on what the conflict is, I think making my other board members aware of that and then taking the step back to either not make a decision or abstain. And, you know, maybe giving my 2 cents as to, I feel this way, and being able to support it logically and ethically, but maybe not making a vote on it. Thank you.
Candidate Marina.
I think it's important to ask the people around you, the people that you trust around you. If I were to feel like there is a conflict of interest going on, I would talk to my other board members. I have a lot going on in my life right now, and I think that it's really important that I ask a lot of questions. Do you think this is a conflict of interest? How do you think this is a conflict of interest? Can you shed some light on this? And just remaining open to that and realizing that for the greater good, there might be a time to step aside and being okay with that and taking ego out of that.
Thank you. Candidate Burke.
So the official rules in our board policy and MASB is a conflict of interest exists if you would financially gain from it. However, there's more to a conflict of interest than that, especially in a small town where your brother does this, your sister does that. I think I've tried to recuse myself twice different times for things, and I didn't have to because I didn't financially benefit from it. But there is something to asking those questions. Like I've sounded off with Travis, like for different times about, am I being objective here? Am I being subjective? Analyzing. I'm still good? All right, thanks. Am I being objective? I think you talked about asking for perspective on those things. Starting with the idea of maybe I'm not, and then moving towards affirmation that you are being objective is the easiest way to make sure that you don't have a conflict. Start with the theory that you do and work your way backwards.
Thank you. Candidate Doss.
I already started.
You start.
Okay. It's a whirlwind.
Okay,
You were doing really good.
that means we're on candidate Weber Juggerpaw for the next question. You have a look of panic.
It happens. It's fine. It's just my face.
Oh. Next question. Here we go. I'm back here. I'm focused. So this question is, what is your connection to Ironwood area schools?
Finally, an easy one. Well, I went to Luther L. Wright from sixth grade until my senior year when I graduated in 2008. I have family, all of my aunts and uncles and my dad went to school there. So, and I lived about a block and a half away from there. So I spent a lot of time hanging out on the football field when I wasn't supposed to.
Candidate Marino.
I have little to none. So I have a 4-year-old, will be 4 in about a week and a half, and I want to participate in his schooling. And I do plan to send him to public schools. So this would be my first engagement as I continue my stay here in Ironwood.
Thank you. Candidate Burns.
So obvious one is I got 4 boys in the school. I've got nephews in the school. I've got a sister in the school. However, the indirect one is every day in this community, I interact with someone that went to Ironwood. I might be serviced by them at McDonald's drive-through, which by the way, our students are the best McDonald's drive-through people possible. So if you get really good service, it's probably an Ironwood kid. But I'm also going to, as I continue to live here, be serviced by someone that went through our schools. Our roads are taken care of by people that went to Ironwood, and they will continue to be taken care of by that. Our snow is going to be removed by people that went to Ironwood. So even if you don't have a kid in the school, you have a vested interest in what comes out of that school, because you're going to have interaction with the adults because they're going to make up the community. So that's my interest in it. I hire Ironwood students. I have Ironwood students working for me. I'm looking at these Ironwood students for our future, for what we're going to do at my job for apprenticeships and things of that sort. I have a vested interest in what comes out of that school, whether you've got kids in it or not. What comes out, we all have a stake in that.
Thank you. Candidate Doss.
I have one child in the school currently. He's in the 3rd grade. He has a different level of need than a lot of the average students, although no students are actually average, but and he's been there since the 4-year-old program, except 1 year we tried the virtual academy during COVID. Didn't work very well. There was learning loss. I have a lot of interactions with other parents that have children in the school, of particularly younger children. And I have a lot of interactions with people that homeschool in the community, and I have a lot of questions about the school, a lot of back and forth. I am also a taxpayer. I own 2 properties in town, and I feel like if I'm going to pay for the school, I'm going to use the school, and I'm going to be involved with the school.
Thank you. And we started with candidate Weber Juggerpaw, so now it's candidate Marino. What are your thoughts on the Common Core curriculum?
I do not know enough about the Common Core curriculum. I was not a student when it was implemented. I've heard a lot of mixed feelings about it. And I have 2 younger sisters that are 16 and 20 years younger than me, and have tried to help them with that homework. And Godspeed to everybody that has not had any practice in it. I think I confuse them more than anything. So I really don't have enough knowledge on it to really have an opinion.
Thank you, candidate Byrne.
So like everyone else, I didn't learn it. I'm old. My methods were different, but I get the frustration about the fact that they're teaching it a different way and I can't necessarily teach it that way. But the whole point is that we're learning how to do things better. So while it might be frustrating the methods, it's from an approach of how do we do a better job? Now, I know there's frustrations from the teachers about not necessarily the Common Core, but the standards of testings and things like that. That's where I can see that there's some frustration of how do we really measure these things? Short answer is these are probably not the best tools because like everything that the government oversees, it's the cheapest option possible. We spend the least amount of money we can on everything to make it the easiest tool. So these are not the best options, but they are the options that people are willing to vote for. That's the difficult part of it. I think that we're frustrated because this isn't how we learned, but we're making an assumption that we learned the right way. So while I don't know how to do it and I get really frustrated like everyone else, I also know that I use my calculator for everything in my phone. So maybe I didn't learn as much as I think I do. Going for it? Okay.
Be assertive with that sign. Okay, candidate Doss.
I was, what's the word? Apprehensive of Common Core at first. I was like, no way, there's no need. We don't need to learn a new way. You know, it's fine. You just memorize your times tables. But I have not done a total 180, but really warmed up to it, especially with math. And I think a lot of it comes from the early learning, advances in early learning technology and seeing that children have different learning styles. And whether, you know, there's visual learners, there's the learners that have to be moving around the room all the time. And Common Core has the ability to help students see things from different aspects. And it's especially working well for my child with math, where I do math for a hobby. I'm a math enthusiast. So I do high level math for fun. And it's not a weird thing. And seeing the way that Common Core explains certain math things is genius to me. Oh.
Thank you. And candidate.
To be honest with you, I have no idea what it is. And now I am going to go home and Google it. And I am going to defer to all the teachers and have them, you know, guide how to teach the classes and the children. And if it works for the math, I might have to go back to school and try that out because I was not good at math.
Thank you. And I think with that question, we started with, who did we start with? I started with, thank you. We have 2 questions left. And then you will have 1 minute closing comments after these 2 questions. Okay, the end is in sight. You're almost out. You're doing great. So now who am I, which candidate am I up to? Okay, thank you. What plans do you have to grow the Ironwood area schools? And I know that at least one of our candidates has already spoken to it, but not every candidate has spoken to it. So that's why I left it in the card deck when I got the question. So what plans do you have to grow the Ironwood area schools?
So it's not as easy as going out and saying, let's go find a bunch of kids, right? That doesn't exist. There's not like a bunch of kids oh, they're underneath this rock. No, that's not a thing. What we need to do is we need to do the best we can for the kids we have to make it an environment that people want to come into. There was a lot of time that was spent under the previous administration of, well, we have a declining population. What can you do? Well, that doesn't mean you ignore all the kids that are out there. You put energy into giving them the best experience possible. That's how we do it. We have the best music program in the area. I do not care what Hurley wants to say about it. We do. We have the best music program. That's something we can be proud of. Arts, 100%. These different things. We've got athletics, which we're starting to build. We've got a volleyball team that, is it still undefeated? Is that still going on? Yeah, see, these are the things that bring people's interest to come into the groups. They make a choice. We're building those things. We have a vision of what the future looks like. And it's not built on going and finding a bunch of kids. It's how do we do a better job for the kids we have? So people want to join us. Thanks.
Thank you. Candidate Doss.
I feel like, it's just not, it's not the same as it used to be. Like I'd already mentioned, the public school was the default. You know, you got your kid's school age, they go to school. Where do they go to school? The bus comes and takes them there. You know, we have to be competitive. Like we are competing with virtual academies, with homeschooling, with, you know, with the internet as prevalent as it is, people have more options. It's more than just, you know, school choice programs. We need to actually like be the first choice, the thing that looks like the best option. And so I feel like, you know, what I'd already mentioned with the arts and growing more of the continuing education programs and really going after people from different economic backgrounds in our community and letting them know that we have good options for their kids that might not be on a four-year college track. And we want them to come to Ironwood and like stay in our community, get what they need from the school, go on to GCC, that sort of thing. I could go on.
Candidate Member Jordan.
I believe that the next way to grow our district would be to look at the programs that we have, see how we can grow them. Maybe by branching out with the local areas and like the 4-H and the community college, and figuring out how we can implement more programs so that we seem more interesting to these students so that they want to come to us, as well as create a intercommunal relationship with these other entities so that there's this bond where they feel a connection to their community. And without that connection to your community, you don't necessarily want to stay in the area. And I think that's something that we need to grow. Thank you.
You. Candidate Burton.
So when I think about all the resources of education in our community, the homeschooling, GOISD moving into Our Lady of Peace, the Ironwood Early Learning Academy that's going to be started at Slate, GCC, the alternative school, the Luther Albright. I think what would happen if we all worked together? Like, what would happen if we had a roundtable of leaders from all of those different educational services coming together and seeing how we could benefit from each other, how we could help each other grow, how we could implement early education into you know, the schools. I know that, you know, you guys are planning on the early education, or we're planning on the early education at Josephson's. How do people vote with their feet? People vote with their dollar. People vote with their energy. So attraction rather than promotion and working together.
Thank you. You still have Vince to Dawson. Okay, I'm getting tired.
You got this.
Okay, last question. Candidate Doss, bail me out here. How do you feel the school board should respond to rumors and disinformation in the schools?
I wish we didn't have to talk about that. Because that's become way too prevalent lately. This whole thing about the furries is just completely out of control from my mind. I think I'm sort of split because I think that some of the disinformation and the rumors are so ridiculous that I can't believe that anybody believes them. So I feel like it's doing the community a disservice to have our administration put out a statement. But then I go back to the fact that rumors will spread unchecked. And maybe sometimes we need to put out more statements. Maybe we need to say, this is a rumor, this is not real. This is why we need to teach children critical thinking skills so that they grow up to be adults that don't believe random crazy things they read on Facebook.
Thank you. Candidate Weber Jarrell.
Well, first, I believe that they should be transparent and consistent. Having individuals say one thing and then it be, contradicted by another member on the board creates even more fuel to these rumors. So having a united, consistent statement on, this isn't true, or, part of this is true, but this has been, altered in a way that it no longer is the truth, and just being open, honest, and consistent. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Marino?
This one's hard because if you're giving attention to certain things, it can make it worse. But if you don't give enough attention to certain things, it can make it worse. I think that, yes, remaining transparent, but also coming together, as a team and deciding, is this worth a press release? Is it going to cause harm and damage if we let it continue? If it's not, is it worth our time and energy? It's going to be a case by case scenario. And it really comes down to, is this harming somebody? Is this going to cause distraction and destruction? And then go from there. There's gonna be people talking. I think it's our individual responsibility to suit up and show up and ask questions.
Thank you. Candidate Marino?
So my current nickname at work is Kitty Little Clancy, because there is a rumor going around that I am trying to put litter boxes in the school. Do you know how many people have actually asked me if I believe in that? This many. This disinformation is all over the place, and it's ridiculous, right? But it's indicative of a fear and a belief that somehow we're hiding things at the school. You ever been to one of our board meetings? When? When you're mad? Do you come there regularly to see what we're doing and we're talking about? No, not necessarily. It is a boring place to come to get something taken care of. It is formatted to really not give you any answers. We have all of the control. We'll let you talk for a minute, but we technically don't have to talk to you about it. If you want answers to a rumor you heard that you cannot believe, his number is wide open. You can call him anytime. Go to the source of it. Do not. We had a situation where we had a very angry group of parents come in. They heard a rumor on Friday and they spent all weekend mad, and they came in Monday. They wasted all that time mentally being angry for something that wasn't true. That is a bummer. They did not deserve that. How do you deal with this information? If you hear something stupid, ask where they heard it and tell them to go ask the person that they heard it from. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are at the closing statements. And we are at candidate Weber Jarvenbaum. So I would encourage you to share why you think people should vote for you.
Well, first off, thank you all for sitting through this entire evening. I believe that individuals should vote for me because while I'm very new to the scene, I am going to do what I think is best for our kids. I'm going to listen to all sides and make the decision that I feel is in the best interest of everyone. And that if you ask me a question, I'm going to answer it to the best of my ability. And if I'm not able to, I'm going to go research it until I can come back with an answer. And I'm going to talk to my fellow board members to try and reach a compromise and again, make the best decision for our kids and support our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Marino.
I think you should vote for me because I bring different life experience to the board. I feel like my story and where I come from is significant enough to bring to a table and help make decisions based on that life experience. I don't have a college degree. I'm a small business owner. I was a truck driver for 10 years. I don't have any experience on the school board, but what I do have is really gritty life experience. And I have the ability to take ego out of the equation to help make the best decisions for our community. I'm a great leader. I love bringing people together to create things and problem solve. And right now we're starting an early learning center at Slate. And I want to continue that service.
Thank you. Kendra.
I think you should vote. And the reason I say that is, right now we have 7 people running for 4 seats. And locally, that is unheard of. We do not generally have enough participation where you have a choice. You have to vote for whoever and you don't show up. This is the first time we have that. The reason I say you should just vote is because that means you're participating in making a choice that you don't normally have. Whoever it is that's willing to put the energy into this means that they're willing to take part in a process that a lot of us got cynical and gave up on. And now we're back at it. How many times do we have options? Don't normally. And that's really cool. But we need to make sure that the options are there because they want to support and not because they're angry. And like I said, participate, show up for things, not when you're mad, but when you want to be a part of it, something positive. We only get people at the school board meetings when people are mad about it. Or if your kid won an award. We get a lot of people when their kid won an award. They show up for that too. The participation's there. Voting is a super cool thing, super great thing. League of Women Voters supports it. Whatever your choice is, please vote for someone.
Thank you. And Kendra Doss.
I think you could vote for me. I feel like it's up to you. I'm not gonna tell you what you should do. I think I have a lot to offer. I care about this community. Like I say, I'm here by choice, and I want to make Ironwood in general a better, more welcoming community. I know this will sound really funny or maybe a joke, but when I first started being involved in things downtown, I was just told so many, well, it's just this way because it's Ironwood, or you have to do this because it's well, yeah, it's not going to work. It's Ironwood. And I don't accept that. Like, Ironwood does not have to suck. Okay. We can make it better as a community. And I feel like I have my energy to put into the school board. So that's where I'm choosing to put that energy. Personally, I'm great in meetings. I'm good at finding common ground. I'm a good listener. I go over time. Thank you.
Thank you. And also thank you to the League of Women Voters and volunteers for hosting this forum. Also the city of Ironwood for the space and all of this fantastic technology where we get to feel really uncomfortably close to the microphones so they work. And especially to the audience, you have been fantastic tonight. Thank you. We didn't have to stop and wait for all the rowdiness or anything like I thought was going to happen. And it was just, you guys did great. And finally, I would like to thank the candidates for putting up with a who's up again and who's next. And you did a great job. And we appreciate you participating in this first forum of the League of Women Voters. Thank you.
Thank you to Glenn.